Massachusetts is blessed with some amazing writers, including Pulitzer Prize winner Tracy Kidder, one of my favorites. He's known for titles like Mountains Beyond Mountains and Strength in What Remains. His new book, A Truck Full of Money, is a chronicle of one of the internet's big success stories, the creation of Kayak.com by Boston native Paul English. This is more than the tale of a high-tech whiz kid. It's also about overcoming challenges like bipolar disorder, and as the subtitle reads, a quest to recover from great success. Joining me now, and it's a real pleasure, is not only the author, Tracy Kidder, nice to meet you, Tracy, but the subject too, Paul English. Paul, it's great to see you again. So, Tracy, there are a lot of brilliant, odd, wildly successful internet entrepreneurs. Why him?
I knew him.
Was that really all it was?
Well, I knew him. I decided to take a look back at the world of the digital world that I had abandoned after I wrote The Soul of the New Machine 30-some years before.
Decades ago, right?
Yeah. I fled that world, and Paul offered to show me around. I also had never written about software. I never even looked into software, and I knew that was the only thing I really knew about his day job, was that he had to do with software. And at a certain point, I decided, why don't I write about him? He's interesting.
Okay, so the question for you is not why him, because I'd pick him if you wanted to write about me too, but why anyone? I mean, this is a warts and all thing. You disclose, I don't like telling people where I went to lunch yesterday.
Yeah.
You talk about suffering from bipolar disorder, as I mentioned, a whole host of it. Why'd you decide to do this to begin with, Paul?
It was quite a journey. I mean, I've always been a fan of Tracy's work, and so first of all, it was incredibly humbling. Initially when he asked me just to show him around what's happening in internet and software and all that, but then when he asked me if I'd be the subject of the book, it was a little bit overwhelming, the thought of it to be, subject of a Tracy Kidder book. But I just like hanging out with the guy, and we had a lot of fun together for about 3 years.
So he wrote it because he knew you. You let him write it because you like hanging out with him.
He's a fun guy.
How nervous were you when you read the book?
I have to be honest with you, I didn't actually completely read the book until a few days ago on my trip to Haiti last weekend. I skimmed the book about 2 months ago. It was my first time I had eyes on it.
Because you were nervous about what it said about you?
It's just a little, not nervous per se, but it's a little uncomfortable reading about yourself. It's just like, I probably won't watch this broadcast on TV tonight. I'm not that interested in listening to myself talk or watch myself on TV. And even reading a book about myself, it's a little bit odd.
Oh, that is odd. Now,
Yeah.
A truck full of money. Now, most people think that's by a statement of fact, which it is, but that's not what it's meant. It's a prediction one of your colleagues made about what you were likely to be hit by at some point. The key to me is one man's quest to recover from greatness. What do you mean, this notion about what do you do with tens of millions of dollars? Because that's not really the end game, is making dough. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, well, yeah. What I'm saying is, it's an odd sort of problem to have, not the kind that would bring tears to anyone's eyes, but but it's a problem nonetheless. I mean, what are you going to do? All of a sudden, you've got $120 million
from the kayak
before
sale,
taxes.
Yeah.
You have a lot of options, of course, but if you have grown up the way Paul did, working class Boston Irish kid,
yeah,
and you don't like money for itself particularly. You just like a few fast cars, but otherwise you'd kind of like to spread that money around and help people with it. You'd also like to start new companies. You don't want to just rest on your laurels. I mean, it's a pretty healthy problem to create for yourself.
So you may have already answered my question, Tracy. Do you see him as representative of a class of wildly successful entrepreneurs, or he's an outlier?
I think he's an outlier. I'm sure there
thing.
are some others, but I mean, listen. Paul once said to me about friends of his who were saying, he would say to them, I feel uncomfortable about all this money I've made. They'd say, you shouldn't feel that way. You worked hard for your money. And his response in his own mind was, as he told me anyway, was, I didn't really work that hard. I'm just good at something that makes a lot of money. Now, when was the last time you heard an entrepreneur say something that humble?
So you read, is guilt part of what drives you? I mean,
no, I don't think it's guilt per se. I mean, I think growing up in an Irish Catholic family, I have a little bit of guilt, of course, growing up in a large family, but I think it's just that I never became comfortable with money. My family didn't have tons of money growing up, and when I made a lot of money, not just at Kayak, but at a couple of prior companies I made some money at, I just thought it didn't make sense to have that money sitting in a bank account.
Well, yeah, I want to stay on the little bit of guilt thing. I didn't know a lot of things about you, even though I know you a little bit. When I read this little piece that you were supposed to be on a flight from Boston to Los Angeles on September 11th, I assume that was American Flight 11.
Flight 11, yeah.
And you went for a cheaper itinerary, sort of one of the great ironies here.
Yeah.
Does that stay with you, or this?
It's funny, that story, I had forgotten that I told Tracy that story until I read the book carefully last weekend when I was down in Haiti. That's a story I don't usually tell people because I know people who actually passed away that day. And I think it was an anomaly, just lucky chance that I ended up rebooking that flight.
Tell people what being on fire means. What's that expression mean?
So, have you ever been in a car accident?
I actually have, yes.
Okay, do you know what it felt like 1 second before the collision where your body gets
Yeah,
jacked with
yes.
adrenaline? So when I'm on a manic phase, it feels like that, but nonstop. So you get that unbelievable rush. You can feel sort of electricity in your veins, and it doesn't stop. It feels like a feeling that you should have just for like sub-second, but it stays with you for days.
And when he's in that phase, can you tell us a couple of things he's done that or attempted to do that you wrote about?
At one point, he tried to buy a lighthouse.
But luckily he failed in that endeavor.
Well, yeah, because he was going to do it for parties, but it didn't have any plumbing or electricity, and in order to get into it, he had to climb a 30-foot ladder.
Well, speaking of parties, how about his combo, what is it, incubator with disco at night? Does that fall on, what was it called, the Blade or something?
Blade.
Like you're laughing.
It was a pretty great nightclub that was also supposed to be an office, but it really, sorry, it was a kind of work of art, frankly, and
I love the concept,
and it was a
actually.
nice place to work. I think I wouldn't mind working.
Did
there.
you worry that when you started coming to grips with this thing, this mental health issue, mental illness you had, did you worry that this creative thing in you was going to disappear if you dealt with that was juicing part of this?
I did. It's something that I have talked with for years with different psychiatrists and doctors who've helped me manage my condition. I had one doctor at Mass General who told me, it's true that if we control the manic side of you, we're probably going to cut down your creativity by 20%, 25%, but you're still like fairly a creative guy, so you'll still be okay.
Okay, before we go, what's the moral of the story? What's the moral of A Truck Full of Money?
He's an interesting guy.
Is that really what is? He's an
Well, I
interesting
think
guy?
most human beings are interesting, and he's a particularly interesting guy. That's what I care about.
I take
and
a
I
lot
think
more
it's a
away
good
from
story.
this, so people should read it. It's a great story. Tracy, it's
Thank you.
really a
Thanks,
pleasure to
Jim.
meet you.
Pleasure to
I'd
meet you.
watch this tonight if I were you when you go home.